Welcome to the Coffee and Questions podcast. I am your host, Michelle Berman-Michael, and my mission with this podcast is simple: to help realtors and loan officers across the world tap into the value Instagram can have for them and their business. To me, organic business that comes to us is the name of the game. On this show, you're going to hear from myself, other experts across social media, and also others that are just like you, selling real estate and doing loans and doing it at a high level on social media. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Coffee and Questions podcast. The person I have on for you guys today is going to be talking about something that to me is just undervalued, right? This concept of being visible before we ask for business. And I couldn't think of a better person to bring on to this show with me this morning than Arjun. He and I have been friends for going on 3 years. We met just before the pandemic kind of became a thing.
Thanks for having me on, my friend. It's good to connect again.
One of the main things I want to talk about is kind of the title of our episode, which is, what if I want to use Instagram to create visibility for myself versus actually generating business, right? So actually going direct to, I'm going to post this picture or this video with the intention of I'm getting a lead.
People in our industry, real estate and mortgage, are trained to ask, real estate agents especially, in figuring out, how do I quantify whatever task it is I'm doing and what's that going to generate me in the way of business? What's my ROI? Like, what's my ROI? They just
every
keep
sales
asking,
call,
keep asking.
Like literally every
single
call I have, I want to say, stop asking that question.
Right. Like, forget about, you want to put that acronym out of your mind. I got into it because I remember the day when I basically had this call with my business coach where I got stood up for a meeting, literally dismissed by this agent who just 3 years prior was a title rep. And, I'd been in the industry for, 15 years. And I showed up at our meeting for coffee and I asked him, he was running late. And I said, hey, are you coming still? And he says, I can order you something. And he says, no, I can't make it. And that's it. Just like the same as canceling an Uber driver. So I was like, man, I just felt like, you know what, man, maybe the universe is trying to tell me something. I need to get out of this business. So I called my business coach, who I've been with since the market crash. We synced up in 08, 09. And he helped me put in systems and basically get my head on right. And I told him this and he says, look, man, the people who work with you know that you're good at what you do. You know that you're good at what you do, but does anyone else really? If I Google you, what's anyone going to find out about you? And then I thought, well, you're kind of right. Nobody really has any awareness or access to the fact that this is what I do or that I'm any good at it. So I have to purely go off of just referrals and pounding the pavement myself instead of letting my brand actually speak, which is the definition, right? It's what's being said about you when you're not in the room. So that kind of set off a light switch. And I realized that I need to basically become better known. I knew I was better, and I still believe this, and this is not arrogant. This is just my own confidence and swagger with it. My belief is that I know that I'm the best. So I needed to basically convey this now in a way that was going to make me the best known commodity in my market, even if people don't necessarily do business with me. So I put the business, and this ties back to the original point, I put the business and the leads and the ROI stuff totally secondary. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to do nothing but post content. It's not asking for anything. It's just giving value, because I know my competition can't do that, because in my market, my biggest competition are large banks. Big banks are not allowed to have a brand. They have to go and sit behind a desk and funnel leads. Most of them work from home right now that the bank generates for them, and then, stand at some open houses. But that's all. Their marketing budget and their marketing scope and capacity is very, very limited. I, on the other hand, I don't have any handcuffs on me. So I can not only catch these guys, but pass them in an awareness market, in a device market, in an information sharing market very quickly here. So I hit the ground running hard for a year. I said, I don't expect anything for a year. I'm just going to spend money on creating content, putting out value, not asking for a damn thing. So I did that for a year. But what I started seeing was that people had heard of me. My meetings that I went into, or the networking groups I was a part of, or the people that I would interface with, they'd be like, you know what, I saw something that you posted about this, or I heard of you, or somebody forwarded me this piece that you did on this. Instantly put me on another level. That was my ROI. When I did that, then I knew, A, this is working. B, this is going to have legs on it, because that's far more important than just some moment or a snapshot of a transaction in time because rates are low, or it's a perfect time to do this or do that. that any one of us can get. You can pay for those leads online. Like you can get that business if you really want it, but it's not going to help you necessarily stay in business for the long term.
Expectation is the root of all suffering. I've said that more times than I can count. My business coach tells me that all the time too. Whenever I'm having that, like, I'm frustrated moment about something, he'll say, or like, we had a mini course that launched in March, and he's like, well, do you have a goal? And then I immediately started rambling off, like the metrics that we were kind of after. And he goes, wrong. And he just said wrong. Like he didn't have anything else to say. He just said wrong to me. And I was like, dang it. I hate that you're right in this moment, but it's true. Right. I've gotten to a place now where in my career, we're in the same place, right? You and I are very, very similar in this. We don't ask for business, but it just kind of comes to us at this point. And that, again, that's not a saying that we're the best in our industry. We're just simply saying that we've created a brand around our names and around what we do, right? You being in the mortgage space and myself being a coach for realtors and loan officers on the Instagram side of things. So it's created this awareness that doesn't exist anywhere else. And the biggest compliment in the world to me is when someone gets on a call with myself or with you, and I know you know this feeling, and they're like, oh yeah, I Googled you. And I'm like, yes, I'm so glad you just did that, because I know that there's so much out there and there's so much free value and there's so much education that you can tell when you finally do get to talk to me that I am all of those things that you just Googled. And I took notes just now when you were saying something, but what you said was, what's being said about you when you're not in the room. And I think that that's what Instagram has really done for you. And we've talked about subliminal and tangible ROIs on another show. But what you just described is subliminal ROI, right? Is when you're not standing around, or when you walk into a meeting, for example, and someone's like, oh, I saw a post that you put out, or I saw that video and I shared it with my so-and-so. That's subliminal ROI. And I think people underestimate or undervalue the power of subliminal ROI. And I think so many people are way too focused on, well, Michelle, your course is $31.97. So how fast do you think I'm going to be able to make my money back? And I think it's the wrong question, right? I think it's
not even think, it's the wrong question.
Don't think. Sure. What's being said about you when you're not in the room? That is what Instagram is. That is what Instagram does for you. But it can't be half-assed. And I think that's another thing that we need to talk about. So when you look at your content, everything's beautiful, right? The videos are very high quality. There's a lot of editing and things that have gone into it. You've obviously spent a good amount of money on people being able to do this at a very high level for you. So if you're not that person, let's say you don't have the budget to be able to do that, but you want to create the brand that you created, is it possible, first off, in your opinion? Second of all, what would you tell somebody to go do with all of what we've already talked about kind of coming into play?
So the brand stuff and the aesthetic of how things look, it doesn't happen overnight. Like that was an evolution. If you go through my feed and you just go way, way down in there a few years back, you'll notice it didn't look the same. So it's evolved over time. And for everyone, they need to accept that. Like just start somewhere. Start by putting out something. Start by just making yourself a little bit more known. Start by talking about things that you are passionate about and how they tie to your industry. And if you do that first, it'll evolve over time, because then, the resources will be there by way of the brand. And then you can invest in doing some actual, real technical and advanced branding work and that aesthetic layout that'll polish it. But you don't need to have that right away. That's not important. So for anyone who's just starting, it's free. Everything you're doing, like you have this device, you just whip it out and just talk.
If you enjoyed this episode, please go follow my guests on social media. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please consider leaving us a review wherever you consume this content.